All right, everybody. Hey, welcome. This is Jake Runnestead, and I am so excited to be here with poet Todd Voss and conductor Eric Holton. And we are here to talk about the brand new piece that we've all come together to create called Earth Symphony. And this is my first symphony that I've written as a composer, Todd's first symphony. And Eric, I think it's the first symphony that you've commissioned
I'm
from your
pretty sure.
organization. Yeah, cool. So we're just really excited to be here to talk about it. And so I thought we'd kick it off with Eric. Maybe you can begin by telling us maybe how we got to know each other and then how this project came to be.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation and welcome everybody. I'm just, first of all, I got to say I'm totally pumped for this. I got the score, Jake, a few weeks ago, and we've been talking about it for a long time, and I'll go back further in time. But there's just something about when that score arrives, and it's a new piece. There's a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of excitement, and you just sort of slowly peek in there. It's like, okay, it's looking good so far. Oh, hey, not bad. That's really smart. And it's just like it was a page turner, as they say with a book. I mean, every page is like, wow. So just really excited about premiering this piece, and thank you for the opportunity to do it. So, Jake, I've known about you. We've known each other for a long time, and it's been a real pleasure to see your star rise big time in this country and beyond, I'm sure. We've performed through Concord, that is. We've performed a number of your shorter pieces over the years, just wonderful gems. And then I encountered your Dreams of the Fallen. And that really made an impression. It's like when you're doing a Bach motet or a Bach cantata. I mean, these are great pieces, and then you open up the Saint Matthew Passion or the B minor Mass, and it's like you just get the fuller sense of the composer's gifts and spirit and thinking. And so digging into that larger piece of yours, Dreams of the Fallen, I really got to see just the sophistication of your craft and the beauty of your creation. And it was a powerful piece. We timed the performance of that piece here in Tucson as part of a program that coincided with the centenary of Armistice Day. And so it seems like a fitting occasion to premiere or to give what I think is the Arizona premiere, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Of that piece, the text of which by Brian Turner, who was an Afghanistan and Iraq War veteran, and describing his experiences with war and the tragedies and the horrors and the self questions of being involved in a conflict like that. And that was powerful. It was gripping. Well, what really did it for me with that piece, though, is that you left the listener with a sense of hope that even in the midst of this terrible thing, this awful thing of war, and we can't say enough about how bad war and that kind of conflict is. There was a sense of hope for a better future, for the person at hand, in this case, Brian, but for all who are involved in any kind of conflict, whether it's war or any sort of injustice or travesty or tragedy. And so just a really powerful emotional journey that you took us on with that piece. And I knew that I wanted to capitalize on that. I wanted to get your next impulses in that vein of tackling something that's hard, that's perhaps troubling, maybe upsetting, but that at the same time can look at it from a point of view that that there is hope. There is something good that can come out of it. So you did it brilliantly in Dreams of the Fallen, and I think you've done so again in this new work.
Cool, thank you. And I remember, being in Tucson for that performance of Dreams of the Fallen, and I mean, it's one of the best performances of that piece that
Oh,
I've
thank you.
I've experienced. And one of the extraordinary things about True Concord is fully pro choir and orchestra. So it's some of the best players and singers from around the country, and so it's an extraordinary sound world that these musicians are able to create. There's a nimbleness, there's an agility, a beautiful ability of musicianship with these people, and with you at the helm. So I was so thrilled when you asked me then for another piece. I was like, absolutely, yes, let's do it. When can we do it? And so I remember being so excited about those early conversations. So, you presented the idea of another large work with chorus and orchestra. And so, of course, my mind goes to, well, what am I going to write it about? And, really we can go anywhere. And we had talked about some ideas. And so then I kind of went back and was thinking about what could this be? And I tend to go towards what is it that's speaking to us as humans in the world today? What is it that we're dealing with? And with chorus and orchestra, it's one of the largest forces that we have as a musical ensemble. And so I think it necessitates a big topic, a journey kind of experience. And really the most pressing issue of our time is the climate crisis. And so I knew I wanted to address that in some way. So I went searching for possible texts for this, and I was looking around lots of different ideas, and I just didn't arrive at anything that I felt was right. So of course I call Mr. Todd Boss, poet extraordinaire, and so we started conversations. And Todd, I don't know if maybe you can speak to what that process is like, and kind of when we work together in those infant stages.
Yeah. Well, it's always a joy to work with you, Jake. You've got a great sense of, the moment, and we're both very hyper aware of our limited scope as white men living in America. Our privilege and all the other kinds of pieces to that, and what can we say, and what should we say, and what should we not say, and what.
Yeah.
And then I think it was probably over the course of a couple or three conversations that we finally were able to sort of figure out that it would be really interesting to take the opportunity to actually hear from Mother Earth herself, rather than sort of characterize her and give her a voice in the third person. What if she were the speaker, of a piece? What would she say if she had the opportunity? And that just got me going as a writer, because the imaginative opportunity in that is so huge. It's literally worlds wide. And so it was probably only about a month later that Jake had a draft, and we just went from there.
Only a month? Are you serious? Wow.
Well, it was a draft. It wasn't the
Yeah.
completed piece. We went
And
through eight more drafts.
Yeah, we went through a lot, and that's kind of how we work. Is Todd will just throw all kinds of stuff on the page, and he'll send it to me, and he'll say, like, okay, here are some of the initial thoughts and ideas, and it could be parts of poetry or little lines or a paragraph describing something, or so there's a lot of information there.
Yeah.
And then we go back and forth and just hone, and I'll say, oh, I really like this, or this doesn't quite work here, or then what if we actually make this a 5-part piece? And so it'll just progress from there. And I think that's a really fruitful collaborative part for the both of us, because then we're both processing our way through the piece. Like for me, even though there's no music yet, I'm beginning those early stages of working through what the musical sounds are as Todd and I are kind of working on the text back and forth.
This is our ninth collaboration together, Jake and I, and he always says the text is the most important thing. And I used to think, well, he's just saying that because he's buttering me up. He wants me to work
Right.
with him again. But the truth is that that is how he seems to operate. And so we spend a lot of work, a lot of hours on the phone together with these drafts until the text is just right before he ever writes a note.
Yeah, I
And
think yeah, go ahead,
I was
Eric.
going to say, do I have it right that I think Wells, our managing director, was telling me that you guys recorded your conversations in the back and forth about in terms of the evolution of the text and the piece?
Yeah, so for this piece, we wanted to experiment and see like what would it be if we captured our entire process. So right away we decided, all right, we're gonna record every conversation we have.
Cool.
We're gonna track every email, every version of the text. Um, when
You
I
know,
started writing, I started right away recording myself with that process, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. But
we could tell we had something big with this, even before it was in, the second or third draft stage, we were aware of the size of the piece. And so we were really diligent this time around in capturing everything. We did some video interviews when we were
Cool.
together for a while. And yeah, we really tried to kind of nail it down because sometimes these things we work this stuff through and then the premiere comes and goes and a year later we can't remember how we really made it.
Oh,
So
you got
it's
there. Yeah,
yeah, so I think it's cool
that's really
for
cool.
us, yeah, to be able to look back and see that process. For those watching, feel free to, if you have any questions, throw those in the various comment sections, and we'll keep an eye on those and be sure to answer those as we can. So, oh, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was going to say, so you said this is our first symphony that we commissioned, which is true. It's also another first for us, in that thanks to you, Jake, you introduced me to Todd, and this is our first commission of a poet. And so, knowing that you guys have worked together, as you said, eight or nine times now, I'm imagining that you've got some really great shorthand in which you're talking to each other. You've got a real good sense of how you work together, and I'd love to hear how you came to Earth Symphony. I mean, I love the bigness of that, the universality of it, and I've got the score right here, which it's got the big blue marble on it. I
Yeah.
love that. I mean, it's like, bam, this is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it's I I love because when Todd describes the piece, he often uses the word sweeping, and I think that it has that grand nature, and of course that really began with the text. And Todd, maybe we can talk a little bit about the voice of Mother Earth and how that progressed through our work together. And
yeah
because early on, Todd, some of the early drafts Todd submitted were the language is a little bit more casual, and I
I
remember,
wanted my first impulses were to make Mother Earth very intimate and sort of um, comfortable, because we know her. So why shouldn't she be really sort of colloquial and casual? But we realized pretty early on, Jake was like, well, it'd just be so much more powerful if she had a sort of commanding, biblical sort of vocabulary. And so
and
that,
part of that too is the way that a choir sings. That it's because of the way words are pronounced, the use of strong consonants and floating on vowels. There's a certain language that lends itself to that style of singing, and I think if a casual language is sung in that way, it can verge on sounding a little hokey. So that was part of the reason too that I wanted a little bit different of language, but also, yeah, the grandness of this powerful Mother Earth figure, I think was deserving of that kind of text.
Yeah, that's a fitting title. I just love it.
Great.
the story starts in sort of pre-human, Genesis,
Yeah.
times. and it proceeds beyond us. And so that sweep of time really is sort of epic. It's an epic story. It's not just a moment in time. It's the whole story.
Well, I mean, you
Yeah,
start out there, forever alone, 4 billion years of empty space and dormant stone. I mean, man, you get a sense of time there with
yeah,
those opening words.
yeah, yeah. So, Todd, maybe we can talk a little bit about the structure and the story itself.
Yeah.
So it's a five movement piece, and it's a progression of kind of the evolution of humankind. Um, and then that's kind of this opening movement. It's called evolution, and it introduces all the themes of the piece. It again has that opening of the 4 billion years of empty space and dormant stone. Then you were born, humankind, and soon upon your face there dawned a trace of mind. And it goes into talking about how we created sciences to study Mother Earth, um, and then introduces this word that she refers to humans as throughout the piece, which is mirabilia, this beautiful Latin word, which is miracle or miracles. So Todd, anything else to add on that first movement?
No, but what's nice about it is that it establishes the relationship as a loving one, and it presents us as a mirror to Earth. She finally has somewhere to look that sees her back for all of the miracle that she herself is. And so the establishment of that relationship as a mutually um, um, uh, 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 um, respectful one is the basis for all the rest of the story.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then also all the musical material for the piece is introduced in that opening movement. And a big part of this is, early on I decided that humanity would be E flat major, and Earth would be D major. So two major chords a half step apart that would kind of have this tension throughout the piece
Yeah.
as they interact. Um, and so throughout, we hear maybe one superimposed on top of the other, depending on who might be in power at any given moment in the piece. So all of that is introduced in the first movement, and then the second movement, which we had a lot of fun with. Todd, maybe you can talk about the Icarus idea.
Oh yeah, well then of course
Great
then
idea.
it occurred to us to use Icarus, and the rise and fall, something that we all sort of know the story, so we just only had to gesture, uh, the rise, and then the fall is really plays itself out in music. It's a very dramatic moment, as I'm sure you are aware
Oh
of.
well,
Yeah, and it's also. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we got to give them a little more than that. We got to tell more about Icarus because for those people who aren't familiar, because it's a great story. To tell us more about it, Todd.
Yeah, Icarus's father this is an ancient myth. Icarus's father was an inventor and invented for him wings of wax and feathers for a toy so that he could play over the sea and the strand. And one day he just decided to go as high as he possibly could, and he got so close to the sun that it melted the wax in his wings, and he plummeted back to the earth. It's just a little parable about ambition and human desire.
And what was really
Absolutely.
fun to do musically is, I tried to bring us back into ancient Greece, and so I tried to evoke maybe the sound of a lyre or
Yeah.
an aulos, so these ancient Greek instruments. So at one point, I asked the harp to play closer to the soundboard, the wood part of the harp, because it adds a different kind of plucking sound that sounds a little bit more like an older lyre. And then I have the piccolo and clarinet and flute that are playing in three octaves, and they're detuned a little bit to sound like an
Right.
ancient, like
Yeah.
pan pipe,
Yeah.
which I'm looking forward to hearing. I
It's gonna
hope
be
it
fun.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited
um,
for that.
but it's I think Todd captures this playful nature of Icarus so beautifully. Like the word "we" is in there, like
I know.
"we." Like how often do we get to sing that? So it's really fun
Another
to
first for
play.
True Concord. We get to sing
I
the
know,
word
right?
we.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to include the oldest fully notated melody that we've discovered as of yet, which is this ancient Greek melody, the Sikalos epitaph. And so I actually use that melody as the main theme that the choir sings with Icarus's words in this section. And, he rises higher and higher and higher and higher. And then there's this kind of loud snap, and we're brought back into Earth's voice after this. So it's a really colorful, fun. It was a fun movement to write, just to explore how many different colors I can find within the orchestra, which is a lot of fun.
Super fun, and really smart to include that text at this point in the libretto, I think. And the it's fun, and we get to sing we, but the serious part of it is it's metaphorical, right? For human beings, just sort of with maybe in a sense of an entitlement, and taking that which we've been given, and maybe taking it too far, and not necessarily, sort of being reckless about it, and not careful, and I think that sets us up really well for the next movement.
Yeah, which then leads us into the third, which is destruction.
Yeah.
And essentially the impact of our actions as humans, and the Earth's response to that. So she opens that movement with the phrase timore atmospheram, which is terror of the atmosphere. You make your mother torturer, turn me against my nature, waste me to tinder, roast me under the torches of the sun. Like it's gripping, really intense language. And so this was the movement that took me the longest to find my way into and to write, because I think it's really difficult to write kind of that gripping, intense, raging music without making it sound hokey. And so it took me a while to find the right musical themes, like a certain simplicity and rawness to it that's not overwrought, that's not overdone. But I'm pretty happy with with how it turned out.
I
Todd,
think it's going to be very powerful.
Anything to add about that movement, Todd?
No, that one pretty much tells itself, and then we're on to a whole new thing with the next movement.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is.
Can I just jump in though and say, because there is another appearance of the word mirabilia, and for it to show up in this movement about destruction, in which Mother Earth is saying, I am rage, I am war, where are your gods now? Mirabilia. Talk to us about how you inserted that word right in that moment.
Yeah, that's just such an interesting word. At first, I hadn't thought that it would refer to humanity. I just thought it was an interesting word to throw around, and it elevated the diction, and it was timeless, and it miracle. It's just so redolent of Earth and the whole story. But then when we hit on the idea that that's her pet name for us, that's sort of her private name for us, that really struck a chord. And then it was useful to open with it in the first movement, but then remind us throughout the piece that she's going to call us that forever. It's not just because of how we began. It's her. She sees us that way, even now. Even at the end, and it gets more powerful the more it gets used.
Yeah, for sure.
And in that movement too, it's in that moment where it comes in, it's kind of raging along, and then there's this slight moment of repose, and that's where she has mirabilia, and then it rages again, and we go to this moment where it says, "What have you done? What have you done? Yeah. Briefest of species, what have you done?" God, I remember just reading it and just like weeping, like just, it was really powerful to experience that the first time. And then moving into the next movement, the fourth movement, this is what we're calling the Kind of Lament, and also we had a lullaby in mind for this. And I, when I was conceiving of this piece, it was at some point this summer, for this moment. I was driving up north to Lake Superior here in Minnesota. I was going to go backpacking for a weekend, and it suddenly, I think when I'm driving or if I'm hiking, all these ideas tend to come. It's just one of those. It's like, in the shower you get those ideas, and I had remembered the Purcell opera, Dido and Aeneas, and then of course the Dido's Lament, which is a well-known, devastating piece of music, one of the most devastating and beautiful pieces of music I think anyone's ever made. And there's this beautiful orchestral transcription of it, by Stokowski, and I listened to it and I thought, the aria is called "When I Am Laid in Earth."
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, we're documenting the history of humanity. I'm using music throughout history. I thought this could be really powerful to incorporate in some way. And just that idea of when I am laid in earth, right? That we are of earth and then return to her. And so for this lament, in thinking about imagining what would it be like if humanity became extinct as a species. And so this movement is her kind of sending us off to sleep. And so I incorporate that Purcell melody, the ground bass, this descending line that happens over and over and over again, and then aspects of the melody, and then it kind of branches off into its own thing. But I just remember like clicking on that. Oh my God, this would be so cool. So I wrote to Todd. I sent him some like voice messages, like, here's some ideas. Can you create a text that fits this metric structure exactly, which we've never done before. And I know Todd was kind of frustrated at first.
I don't like being told how many syllables I get to. He's got the stresses and everything all laid out for me, like I'm in, fifth grade. It was a great challenge. I think I probably wrote twice as many verses as you ended up using because I had to push against it, in my fashion, and you didn't want that. So you kept sending them back to me, and then I had to figure out how to fit those very few syllables and pack them as richly as I could. It was a challenge.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was a stroke of genius. Jake, I share your regard for the Purcell. That piece resonates with me very powerfully. For those true Concord fans who are listening, you might recall that we performed the Dido and Aeneas a few years back, and that lament is definitely one of those tunes you just never forget. And so for you to work it in here at this point in the libretto, I thought was just genius. So hats off to you both.
Yeah, thanks. So it kind of gradually grows and grows, and then it just branches off and blossoms into this aching variation on all of it, and then we come away from that into the final movement, which is called Recovery. And Todd, you want to walk us through the visions you had for that?
Gosh, let's see. So, recovery is tricky because in this imagining, humanity isn't part of Earth's recovery. We're gone. It's an imagining, and so we really just had to think through. Well, how would Earth, as a mother of dead humanity, recover? What would her grief look like, and what would she need to sort of find any kind of closure in the story at all? And it ended up being, the way you would imagine it. The Earth heals her own wounds. She's a living creature herself, and she knows how to fix things. It's just going to take a long, long, long time. And Eric, you were talking about hope earlier. It's kind of a dark thing to talk about this movement as a hopeful movement, because humanity isn't in the picture anymore. There is some hope in it, but I like to think that the hope is really throughout the piece, and it resides again in that in that relationship, that respectful relationship where the piece began, that's really where the hope is. And the whole piece really is something of a warning story that doesn't have to play out the way we've told it.
But she doesn't forget about her mirabilia, right? I mean, there will come a day like the first day, so heavenly, so clear. You would love it here. Yeah, it's a beautiful. It's the word love is beautifully rendered right here at this point. And Jake, you did some amazing setting of these words here in this movement with some fun and special effects. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this movement, I wanted it to sound completely different than the rest of the piece, right? Because everything before this involved humans, and now we're in this place where, humanity is no longer part of the equation. And so I very purposefully left out the brass as kind of a symbol of metal, of industrialization, of things that we've created and pounded into being. So everything that we hear in the last movement is mostly just wood, I guess, which would be trees and plants, the string instruments, the harp, the woodwinds. And then there's another effect that I use with crystal glasses. Again, they're not wood, but I wanted to sound different. So we introduce crystal wine glasses, right, which you play by scraping your finger around the edge. And so really for me, it could be that image of the blue marble that astronauts have seen from space when they go out and they see Earth as this little ball of colored glass, and it changes the way that they think about the Earth. Right? They don't see borders, they don't see war, they don't see these divisions that we've created, but rather it's just a tiny little dot that's seemingly insignificant in this massive blackness of the universe. And so it changes context. And when you return to Earth, you live differently because of that. So I wanted to kind of zoom us out musically, and take us in this floating, suspended state that then moves into the growth that Todd uses with the text, which is, ivy shall recover every avenue, seaweed swallow every drain, and forestry sow a sorcery over every human stain. And so there's this growth that happens. And then one idea that Todd came up with that in an early draft, I was like, yes, we have to keep that, is this image of a whale that is swimming and turns a perfect circle in the shell of a factory. And I just loved that image so much. So I was like, Todd, we got to keep that. That's got to make it, all the way into the last version. And so I had to find a way to kind of paint that with some effects in the orchestra too. So yeah, this last movement is about blossoming. It's about regrowth,
rebirth.
Yeah, and so I guess that's kind of the main idea of the piece. And we've got some questions on here. One of them is asking about kind of the Earth's role as a mother and how did that influence, why we chose what we did. And so maybe Todd, can you talk a little bit more about the Earth Mother idea, that mother trope that we're using?
Yeah, it's a really tired cliche that we are all a little too familiar with, and I think the fun with cliches is that you can make them fresh if you sort of rework them, and so that was part of the challenge. The other was, how do we make this story personal? We didn't, Jake and I are not. We don't want to stand, up on the podium and preach at audiences, and we don't want to instruct. That's not the true aim of art. Instead, it's so much more interesting to embody the work and engage with a story, a personal story. So, making Mother Earth an actual speaking narrator solved all those problems for us. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the main ideas here is creating or finding a way to find empathy for the Earth And as we think of it as a mother, you know, there's a sensitivity, there's a different relationship that we think about is if we think of ourselves as children of this earth, as opposed to like dominating, owning, beating the earth into submission in whatever way that we want. You know, it's if we shift that perspective, I think that's where we can really allow change to happen. And I remember that being a really important part of what we were thinking about in those early stages of that idea of it being a mother. Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions? What is your favorite moment in the piece and why? Do you guys have any yet? I know that we haven't heard it in real life yet. I know we've heard like the MIDI virtual instruments.
Yeah, there's so many cool spots, but you know, going back to that lament, it's so heartrending. I mean, it just granted for me, there's I bring to it the attachment to Purcell and his work, but gosh, you brought a whole new way of thinking of that tune, words inserted with Todd's words at that point in the story. It's that's definitely my favorite spot right now, but that could change tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and Todd, I know that you know, when I was playing it for you for the first time, the virtual thing, and kind of singing the words so you could experience it, there was that moment in the lament where the orchestra just takes over, and you were weeping, and that happened both times that we kind of listened through it.
Yeah, it's you know, I get really used to the text because I labor over it for so long, but then when I get to finally get to hear the interpretation, it's always transfixing for me. But in that particular case, there was sort of a moment when the heartbreak of the piece is so intense, the words just fall off, and they can do no more, you know, and that's when the music just takes us to another place, and I fall apart.
Well, and that's something we talked about early on too, is in the text leaving room for the music to be able to kind of elaborate on what the text says, you know, leaving some space for that. Yeah, so I know that you kind of had that in mind as you were.
Yeah, we worked hard to pare down the language so that you had a lot of room to illustrate.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to clarify, the premiere of this piece is at the end of this month, February, I think 25, 26, 27, right?
That's right.
In Tucson, Arizona with True Concord. There's a question here about, will the premiere be live streamed? I don't know. Are you doing a stream for this, Eric?
We're recording it with our partners with Arizona PBS, and the recording of the concert will be available a few weeks after the program. We won't be live streaming. Too much technology right now for us to
of course,
with, but
of course,
you know, one day we'll get there. I think that's an exciting idea. But you know, this premiere, I can't tell you the growing excitement that's happening down here in Tucson around it, because you know, with COVID and this recent Omicron surge, we had to go dark last month. We had a really exciting program with another world premiere, actually, of Jocelyn Hagen all scheduled, and we had to forego it because of health and safety concerns. And so we've just been aching to get back to rehearsing and performing.
Yeah. And
this piece is just, it's so True Concord. I'm just so proud of it and so grateful for it. We're tackling an important topic with extraordinary words and extraordinary music, because what we do as an organization is we commission and premiere new works. We also perform masterworks, and on this program we get to offer both, because we're also performing one of the original climate and weather pieces, the Vivaldi Four Seasons, featuring four different violin soloists. And so we get the old and the new, and that's really what True Concord has been about, is celebrating those treasures of the canon, and then also being able to create new works. And again, thank you to both of you for allowing us to do that.
It's a pleasure and a joy. So Eric, what is it like to like, get this score, and you haven't been part of the creative process. Todd and I have been going back and forth, and then you get it, and then what's your process in looking at this ink on paper and making sense of it, and then having to bring it to life?
Well, as I said, when that score arrived, it's like Christmas. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to open this up. It's so so fun. But there's always a little trepidation. But you start digging it in, and I think you said it well at the top, and I think Todd, it's true. I mean, the words are so important. I mean, they're vitally important, and good composers do good things with good words. And Jake has done that time and time again, with many pieces that we've had the pleasure of performing, and those that we haven't yet. But and as I mentioned in Dreams of the Fallen, and so I immediately go to the words and I look at what Jake has done with the words, and it's just, what can I say? It's smart, it's thoughtful, it's with just careful concern and care for the meaning of the words, and the meaning comes out. He's able to accentuate and highlight the meaning of these words through his musical language. And so it's just a brilliant marriage, I think, of words and music. And so that's where I start. I start with the words, and I'm putting notes in my part about, we need to breathe here, we need to be especially careful and deliberate here, and so that we can bring out these words, because this is really what it's about, right? It's the message of this piece are in the words and the musical amplification of them.
Yeah, cool. Well, we can't wait to hear it come to life. I know that's, like, for me, the most exciting part, right? To finally hear it, because it's been living, swirling around in my brain for months and months, and so to like finally hear it in the air is just one of the most exciting.
I think I'm probably the last to hear it, because I don't have a head for music. So you all are hearing what you're hearing in your heads.
I don't know.
I don't even get that.
There's something very musical about your words, Todd. Do not sell yourself short.
That may be, but it's just one instrument in the piece,
Yeah.
Yeah. Such an important one.
Looking forward to having you guys here. And for those who are in Tucson, you can hear these guys talk more about this. There's going to be a panel discussion on February 23rd, 11 o'clock a.m. at the ENR2 building on the campus of the University of Arizona. And so we can delve into this music and these words even more then, and hope you can join us for that.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Great. Any closing words from you guys?
Again, I just want to say thanks, and you guys are definitely a dynamic duo. I'm kind of like the third wheel over here, but I can't wait to have you guys here in Tucson. And I mentioned Bach. I mean, we love doing the masterworks. It's great, but there's nothing like working with a live composer and the poet, and we got you both in the same room. So I'm really excited.
Well, third wheel or not, we couldn't do this without you, Eric. Thank you for the commission, and we're so looking forward to meeting everyone and engaging with the community out there.
Yeah, it's going to be so special. So thank you. So for everybody who's listening, if you're in the Tucson area, February 25, 26, 27, go to trueconcord.org to learn more, to find out for tickets. And then, yes, the concert will be available at some point later on, so stay tuned. You can probably subscribe to a newsletter on True Concord's website.
Absolutely.
And stay tuned to my social media too, and Todd's, and we'll be announcing that when that's available. But so excited to share this piece, so excited to be working together, and to bring this all to life. So thank you, everybody, for for being with us tonight. And we can't wait to share Earth Symphony with all of you.
Take
Cool.
care.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.